I am excited for this live stream. I actually never really know if it starts right at like 1 second or it takes a couple seconds, like the 0 just popped up. I don't know who hears what, but I appreciate you for coming in and hanging out with me on this one. What I am doing here, I am joined by George from Prospero. You guys have seen us talk a bunch about the app Prospero. Well, they are doing a crowdfunding raise. So we wanted to come in, talk about it. We are working with them to share out the app. And I wanted to, dig into this raise, dig into more on how everything is going, and really kind of just do my due diligence in real time and see if I want to invest in this. So, George, I appreciate you joining me. We're getting some of the people to start coming in here, but why don't you introduce yourself a little bit? We'll talk more about the raise in a second, but why don't you tell us about yourself and Prospero and us getting to this point?
Yeah. So I'm George Kalis, CEO of Prospero AI. I actually have had a pretty long career. I'm almost 40. And I started when I was 16 at Columbia Business School, working at the Value Investing Center, taught myself accounting to work at my first hedge fund when I was 17. I did a lot of value investing when I was young. But, what was, I think, true then is even more true now, which is that I felt even as a small fund when I was working there, I felt pretty disadvantaged versus the big guys. So I actually started my first AI company 15 years ago. I was doing outside R&D for institutions on building out, automation, artificial intelligence platforms. And then, about 6 years ago, started Prospero because a lot of what I was doing and a lot of my goals were, back to my first experience where I thought that, there was a stacked deck even against, smaller funds, let alone retail. And I experienced that. I invested during the tech bubble when I was 13. That's probably my earliest experience. So yeah, I really wanted to create some tools that help level the playing field. When we actually set out, primarily to focus on where institutions were betting in the options markets, visualizing that. And we were actually just minimizing errors or setting out to minimize errors. So retail investors were not just betting against institutions. It's turned out to be an amazing trade signal. Our newsletter picks are beating the S&P by about 67% the last 4 years. We've been really consistent in our win rates for individual picks versus the S&P 500 between 58 and 61% the last 4 years. So really powerful, consistent. And now, we're thinking about our next leg of expansion. It's actually really important for us to involve our, customers and potential customers, users in that, so they can help tell our story and we can all kind of share in the benefits. That's very on brand for us.
Very nice. I think we've done a couple ones digging into Prospero itself. So why don't we actually just kind of focus in on this raise that we have going on right now? I do have the Republic link up right now. Let me just double check. I did just post it there. So if you're watching this on X, if you just go below there. And I just want to, first of all, before we dig into anything, we are investing in a private company here. There are different risks, probably more risks than investing in these public companies that we go in and talk about here. So you guys definitely should make sure you're knowing that even before we're even looking at this. But this is a crowd fund. The minimum investment is $250, which was definitely one thing I was looking at. But I wanted to kind of just look through this page or we'll kind of see where we end up getting at. One of the first things that stood out to me was the $16 million valuation, or what does valuation cap necessarily even mean? So the maximum valuation, is this the valuation?
Yes. So it means that that's the highest it could be valued at. If we take a valuation lower than that, then you get the benefit of that as well. So yeah, safe. It's a safe. Safes are highly.
We're 79 days left. It started at like 90 or something, I guess, maybe less, 10% of the way through. I would imagine this is going to be the valuation. You don't have to say it. I guess we could leave it at that one, but it seems to be off to a decent start.
Yeah. Oh, did you lose me for a second? I think my mic changed.
No, you're good. I think you're good.
Yeah.
Cool. I am curious. Yeah, go for it.
I was going to say, I don't know if my mic cut out, but basically, 16 million is the worst valuation you can get. That's why it's the cap. If we raise at a lower valuation, your safe will get marked to that lower valuation. Don't think that's going to happen, but it's very investor friendly.
I'm curious on how you guys make money. It did switch to the other mic, by the way. I can actually hear it back. It still sounds pretty good, but there's a little bit of an echo. But I am curious on how you guys end up making money for in general right now, and kind of what the general pathway is. Both honestly revenue and kind of profitability of how you guys think about that. Like, is that something you guys plan to invest for a long time? Like, I'm curious on what you see for like the immediate, like what does the next year or 2 years look like after this?
Yeah, so right now we have just our paid investing letter at $10 a month, paid trading newsletter at $20 a month. Those have, very.
You have in here on like how, like what the conversion, like how big that is, and like maybe even like what the uptick of that like was, and like
Yeah,
any data on
I
that?
believe we have, right there. We have the newsletter. We have the newsletter a little up. We have the newsletter revenue. Yeah, like this year we're on 157% year over year increase, up from 208 the year before. But those products, as you can see right there, actually only 25% of our total user base wants to pay for a letter at all. Newsletters aren't necessarily the most popular product. But of that 27%, 25%, we've actually converted 6.87 to paid. So we have really, really, good numbers on the products that we have.
Can you say that last part again? I'm sorry. You said you converted 6.8 or whatever to paid. What was the number?
Yeah, 6.87% of our weekly active newsletter users convert to paid.
Gotcha. Okay.
And that's only out of a 25% of our total user base even want to pay for a letter at all.
How much of what percentage of the users on the app end up, like, how does that kind of convert into this? Like, I guess maybe like you haven't started to monetize the app, but we're kind of like trying to take these numbers and go into the app, and it probably would convert better, my guess, within an app versus a newsletter. But is that kind of the thinking?
That's the stat we're sharing. Actually, 75% of our users expressed interest in the alerts that we're building. Of course, we're very careful with our due diligence. Like the story I always tell is like the first 3 years of Prospero, I was the only user. I had to make sure that it worked really well by me, who obviously knows a lot more than the average retail investor, before I made it available. And we've been working on the trade alerts for about 2-3 years, putting them through a lot of paces, making sure that we're getting the right alert to people and really what the best opportunity is in a given day. So yeah, that's going to be $50 a month. So we think that is going to be our easiest to use product, as well as our highest ticket product.
Will that be within the app, or will that be like on the newsletter? Okay.
Yeah, that'll be in the app. That's going to be our first in-app product, right? We also have, we also are planning to do a web app, a paid Discord, but a lot of our long-term revenues are going to be in asset management products. Whether it be ETFs, we're talking to some partners about building kind of like smart portfolios on large platforms with a lot of users. We think those are going to be our biggest, money makers. And the other thing is this partnership with retail investors that we're trying to form. One of the ways that we think we're going to be able to build excellent strategies long term is we're going to ask users to donate data to make our predictions more accurate. And we've already had on V3 of our app, we already had, 58% of our users actually responded, voluntarily gave us data that would help us, build more accurate predictions. So that's our real long-term plan, asset management products that are very accessible, highly accurate, and enhanced by community data to deliver data to the community that gets them better returns. And, kind of the some people, that's a little too ethereal. The concrete answer I always give people, like, how would that work? We could ask people, say, what's your temperature, and model, say, a pandemic in real time, and essentially do what the U.S. senators did when they were looking at hospital data, reassuring the public, shorting the market. But instead of that private arbitrage, by making that more of a public utility and delivering returns to people from that data, we would be incentivizing more data sharing.
Okay, so I'm looking through this. There are a couple more things I want to ask, but I think that it is important. The question that I'm kind of covering here is like, okay, so what's important is being able to beat the market, these signals and stuff like that. So first of all, I want people who's watching this to be able to confirm everything they're seeing, not just kind of see numbers in a chart and be able to actually go in and look at it. So, I mean, where can they go in and test some of this stuff out? Maybe you get a couple months in there. Like I said, there's 70 days until the 79 days. So I'm sure you'll get a lot of picks to get to see. There's number of picks a year, 772. So, yeah, my question would be is where can we kind of see and confirm these numbers? And like, yeah, I'm just kind of what sets the stuff that Prospero is doing apart from any of these other services or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, you can see there's links to our prior year performance below that chart. You can go check out what we the review, what we worked on. So that's always a good way to validate. You can follow what we're doing there. We just had like our best case study, I would say ever this past week when we actually had 6 positions on CoreWeave, 5 of them short, 1 of them long. But we've been saying that CoreWeave was a short. We actually got within $4 of the high since we entered on our shorts, and then $1 of the low. So we were very accurate on that, and we flipped on from short on 8.5, our last position exited, to long on 8.7. So you can always see us doing like very interesting things where we're reading the market very accurately. And we kind of have those ground level case studies. There's a link to the case studies at the bottom of this. There's also an update that we just posted in there that has, you can see that CoreWeave. You can basically see that links to our case studies. It links to the CoreWeave case study. You can kind of see that, but I'd also suggest looking for yourself in the app. What I always tell people is if you use Prospero signals, if you look at them on entries and exits, whatever you're looking at them, look at them for ideas, you will get better, right? I think, in thinking about what we do things differently, I think a lot of people are over-promising on, beating the market. We always, we'll always beat the market, that kind of thing. Like what we actually do is very different. We show how to use our signals, but ultimately what the Prospero platform is trying to do is teach retail investors how to be better, improve your process, teach you ours, how to let the signals enhance what you're doing, and really teach people how to fish. And I think we're the only, people trying to do that. There's a lot of platforms that will try to invest your money. There are a lot of platforms, which, by the way, is a very crowded space, very hard to beat Vanguard, very hard to beat, other larger asset managers. And those asset management firms, tend to pay $500 to $1,500 in customer acquisition costs. Wealthfront Betterment, they paid like $1,000 per user in their early days. We're getting people into our funnel at $1.50 a user. And that's why we're doing the trust earning user growth before we really get into the asset management stuff. And yeah, we're highly differentiated on that. There's a lot of, I would say, complex products that are more targeted at traders, but we really try to simplify a learning process. And I don't think there's anyone else out there doing this.
Do you have the $1.50 number? I mean, that's to a free user. Do you have any like data on here about like users or I'm seeing like user retention on users, that kind of cost per acquisition? I know we've talked about that 6.87% number, but I'm curious on like the kind of cost to over to a paid user too, how that ends up looking up, because obviously we don't know it right now, and it's kind of like going from 10 to 20 stuff. But when you look at what we're going to maybe use this for, if you can get 50, it was a lot for marketing. So if you can get a $50 service that it costs you $30, $25, 20, whatever it is, 15, 10, I don't know, to get people into that pay, it's a really sustainable thing to throw some marketing behind. So yeah, I'm curious. What is there anything on here on the numbers, $1.50, anything like that more?
Yeah, so we might be double counting like the users in our system. It could actually be cheaper than that $1.50, because we don't know what we're double counting. But in terms of the paid users, it's very hard to track because like we basically do blind users in terms of masking people's personal information. So knowing exactly who is converting to paid, we don't know. That's why we give just that total number.
Gotcha. Okay. How are like users who are, So some of the stats here, like 20% of all our signups are then active on a weekly basis. How well does this kind of, for the users you brought on 3 months ago, 4 months ago? I'm sure at a point it becomes less valuable data, but how are they looking further on? And I'm also like, I feel like it would be, I want to check back on this for like how the people who signed up in July and August stuck after 2-3 months. But what have you seen so far, if anything?
Yeah, so we're basically just taking that whole number, all of those users, and saying what are our weekly actives in the newsletter and app, similarly to how we look at the total marketing spend, and we divide that number. In terms of recents, we updated this, I think, as of the end of June, and that's an all-inclusive number. I could work on getting an update of just how much the recent retention is, but when we've calculated that number, we've always looked at, okay, of all the people that have signed up all time, what percentage are we still seeing on a regular basis? And we think that's a very, very strong number. That's why that's the number we report, but we could get more granular with it.
I want to ask more about switching up a little bit, because the area that honestly I think that I'm the most interested in and want to make sure that I'm the most clear on and can look at. I think it might just be signing up for some of the newsletters, but is understanding the picks and the plays and stuff like that in the app and the really value out of this, because the truth is there are a lot of these discords and stuff like that go around right now that can make a lot of money. There's no checks and balances. We don't know who's a good trader, who isn't. They're very segmented, not segmented. So there is definitely a space in this arena if you can provide high quality trades and signals that people are going to use. Like, people will pay for that a lot, especially if you also have a good kind of funnel into it. So, maybe the answer is just going in and signing up for the newsletter a little bit. But like, I'm curious on like if there's one or two names that have come off recently, or like, I'm curious on like for people who go in and sign up for it. But is there anything else they can kind of do to verify some of the picks?
Yeah, I mean, we track these, like we track them, pretty comprehensively. They can go back and look at our old newsletters. They can pretty much track to like anything that that we're looking at in our current portfolio. Those are the things that we really like. But yeah, I mean,
where is that on here? That's these?
So we put it at the top of like every letter. We report like our performance and then we link to it, but this is the link to, I don't know how easy it is for me.
You could share your screen. It is pretty easy.
Yeah.
Or you could just send it my way. By the way, if anyone has any questions or anything you want me to ask, let me know. We're going to do another one of these for sure. I want to continue to dig in.
I can't see how to do anything other than the private chat. I'm trying to send you a link, but I can also show you it.
You can send it in the private chat.
Oh, yeah, I didn't even see how to work that. Oh, there. Okay, so that's the link, and then I will share my screen. So you can just go here, and at any given time, this is going to show you like the performance. You can basically.
Okay, there you go. Now it is shown.
Yeah, so you can see the performance. It actually will give you like links to prior years, even that's in that as well. But yeah, you can see what's in our portfolio right now. You can go back and historically, look at what we've invested in. A lot of the times you can see, like if you look at a date, a lot of the times it's tied to a specific newsletter. Sometimes you won't see the actual transactions because our real-time transactions are screenshotted midweek and sent to our paid users through the Substack chat. But yeah, you can track like, exactly what we're in now. Like the difference between this and the app is like, this is what we are using from the signals to create portfolios. So this is the most accurate way to look at like what we really stand behind. The app is more of like, I think we mentioned a few times, like more of a self-guided tour. This is what we're doing to take the signals and stocks in the app and form them into portfolios. But you can kind of see exactly what we're in. And then when you go and you look at these full year reviews, you can kind of see not only will that link to a spreadsheet, but it will tell you a little bit more like thematically, how we made money last year. There's like a 6-month review. that we already released, what sectors we're in. So there's a lot of different ways to, validate exactly what we did and, what our advantage is. I would suggest looking at the case studies too, because that, if you're thinking of, if you're addressing the question of, here, and I think I can pull them up. If you're
That
addressing the
spreadsheet,
question,
can I make that? Can I post that somewhere or no?
yeah,
Is it?
yeah, it's that's open. Anyone can
So
visit.
here, I want to say something. If you are listening to this and it's not live, send me Stock Market News a DM for this spreadsheet, which has all the info on the stuff he's talking about here, and I will get that sent over to you. Just DM me the words Prospero spreadsheet, and I will send that over to you. But I am putting that in the link, that link in the chat right now for anyone who wants to go and see that. But DM me for the link.
Yeah. And I think the one thing that I always encourage people to look at are these case studies. If you're wondering, what makes Prospero unique, I think that there's very few platforms that offer such strong signals that are like well conceived as well as easy to use, right? Like there's a bunch of case studies in here, like how we got, we basically got Alibaba in 2022, 2023, before these two major news events, like before reorg and before Ant. And you can see, our biggest signals, upside breakout, net option sentiment, pretty volatile or low. But then right before these news events, they got, really strong. And I always like to show these two next to each other because the same 90-90 cross for these two things happened. We got an AppLovin when it was first at 112.58. And then you can even see bumps before all of these earnings. So we've really done a lot of work to simplify what we'd say are, net institutional bets in the market. And if you look at something like Upside, we actually go a little deeper. Meta, we got in when it was at 170. And when I first saw this, I actually thought that, like, the first thing I thought to myself was, Prospero doesn't know that Mark Zuckerberg's an idiot. Of course, it only took me about 2 months of seeing that Meta was at 100 and Upside. And by the way, only a few stocks have ever been at 100 and Upside for an extended period of time. Meta, Coin, Palantir now. So it's a very, very strong signal. And not only is it looking at, options data in the long-term options markets, making sure that there's live bets above where the stock is trading. It's looking at analyst ratings, price targets, price momentum factors, all squashed into one number. So for a stock to stay at 100 Upside, it's got to have, as the stock goes up, there's got to be new options bets placed above where the stock is trading. Analysts have to keep raising their price targets, keeping their buy recommendations on. Price momentum factors have to stay good. So we're really putting a lot of information into singular numbers that can just make people a lot smarter. And the one other thing that I would show, I actually don't want to skip past this too fast. We did, kind of predict a Wolfspeed bankruptcy, not to be confused with Wolf Trading, earlier this year, where you can see this drop in net option sentiment. By the time we had picked this up, Upside was going almost to zero, which means it was the least bet on stock in the long-term options markets, among other things. But we could really see a lot of these things before they happen. But yeah, earlier this year, we saw SPY net option sentiment at zero, and we were able to flip our portfolio short. If you look at our portfolio this year, we're up, 124% on our shorts, 43% annualized over the SPY on the longs, still a great number. But even in a bull year, information like this, where we can see the market turns before they happen, really help us differentiate. And there are people that use our app just to look at SPY and QQQ net option sentiment because it's such a useful signal to them. But yeah, I would say if you're looking at, hey, what makes Prospero different from anything else out there? I would say it's more powerful and simple than anything else on the market.
All right. I think that. Let me think. Let's go through this doc a little bit one more time. But I think we got through a lot on this one, and as you can see, the gardeners are out here. Gardeners are out in full force. This mic is great, but it goes through and picks up a lot. One thing I did want to talk about down here was the team a little bit. Could you run us through a couple more of the people on the team and, they're just what I'm seeing here?
Yeah. So,
Ooh, I think we got you disconnected unless it's me. George, am I? Is this
Yeah.
me?
Oh, yeah. You cut. I
Okay.
don't know what happened.
Sorry. Yeah, but I want to get your thought. Anything you want to throw in here on the team? I want to hear more about some of the people. How many of these like are full time versus, council and stuff? What's kind of like the scaling here? Like, does it need to scale? Is this like a lean company? I'm just curious about this team slide.
Yeah. So actually, a lot of these people, we've had over 50 people do equity only. So sweat labor into this. Like we're actually pretty lean because a lot of people believe in our mission and what we're doing. So yeah, like in terms of full-time people, we don't have, we're probably only at like 3-4 people that could be considered full-time. So yeah, like we actually have a big advisory board that help out. They're vested in the upside of the company, and there's a lot of talent there. And that's why we're able to get, such an advanced back end, such an amazing front end. One of the, like, you could see the people on the design team. One of them was a former creative director at Apple for 7 years. There's a lot of talent on this team that we've been able to run lean.
Gotcha. Any highlights in these people in the general advisors? Maybe one or two of them. I mean, one or two of them stand
Yeah,
out.
I
I
mean,
guess you don't want to pick one or two, but let me pick one. AI NASA James. That sounds interesting. And then all right, we'll go VP Product Markets. Tell me a little bit more about Jay Jacobs and James Villarubia.
yeah.
What they bring to this team. What they bring to the
So
table.
James has, really helped us a lot with our high level AI vision. Actually met him on X. It's an interesting story. He interacted with one of our posts and actually found out that I was where my parents live in Great Barrington, Massachusetts, and he lived pretty close there. And yeah, we got to chatting and in terms of how we look at our AI vision, the high level functioning of our system, he's really helped out with that. Jay actually was a user of Prospero, a pretty early user. He said he wanted to reach out, talk about some of the stuff that he's done. He went from Marcus to Goldman. So I was like, I was excited that, someone like him was interested in what we were doing. And since then, he's become a really, close product advisor. We talk every couple of weeks, everything from, the product vision to how we think about products interaction with marketing, a lot of stuff in terms of how we think about it. And I want to talk about John Fee because he's one of our newest advisors. He previously ran marketing at a BlackRock ETFs. He was an SVP of global marketing at Salesforce. So as we grow, he started a couple months ago. He's going to be integral to making sure that we're getting our message out there in the best ways. And I was really excited when he agreed to join.
Nice. Thank you for those thoughts there. Is there anything else on this that you think people should know? Where, like I said, I want to circle back here. Kind of regather my thoughts, maybe even rewatch this myself, dig in a little bit more, and we can come back with a second set of questions. Maybe we do this in a couple weeks. I'm definitely going to get a bunch of people to come in and circle back and watch this. I know we've had a lot of our people. We've been working with you guys for a little bit, and a lot of you guys have ended up using the app and really loving it. So, yeah, I think a lot of them will be interested in hearing more in this one. And obviously, like I said at the start, investing in private companies has different risks and probably more risks than investing in these. Yeah, I think definitely more risks than investing in these public companies, liquidity and stuff like that. Actually, with that, what's your guys'? Do you have any plans for like liquidity events? Is there a secondary market? Is there any is there any thoughts around that?
Yeah, I mean, candidly, we'd really like to go for an IPO. That's how we view it. We think it's a great consumer brand, and consumer brands do very well in the IPO market. I don't think we're that close to that. So on the way there, we definitely want to create, a secondary market, a private share market. We've seen a lot of startups, do that well in terms of, creating liquidity for their investors, for their early employees. I think that's a very smart thing. So we will definitely do that, I think, on the way to an IPO.
Cool. But yeah, listen, the goal here is just to put stuff on your radar, interesting opportunities. We're working with them. And yeah, I really wanted to do this, do my due diligence in person. I like actually believing in these stuff and these crowd funds. So yeah, I thought this was great. I want to circle back and then hopefully maybe at one point maybe we I want to put some money in. We'll see. But yeah, this was a great first one. If anyone's watching this and has any questions they want to make sure that I ask when we end up doing a second one, as you guys doing your due diligence into this, we're doing a lot more interviews or stuff probably, or just across the wolf thing. I know George is doing a lot of stuff. So if you do want to understand more, any questions or anything like that, I'm sure you can reach out. I know you can reach out to George, that Prospero account, and then also he's doing a lot of interviews and stuff, so you should see him around. But George, is there anything you want to leave the people with here? Anything that, as these people are doing their research, I feel like if they made it to the end, they're interested and they're at the point where they're digging in. Is there any part of this you think they should make sure they don't miss?
Yeah, I think as you were scanning, the thing that I really want to bring people's attention to is, some of what we're doing on the on the expansion side, right? I think we should be announcing soon partnerships with Finimize and TrendSpider. I think the Finimize folks are going to start rolling it out to integrating it into their process where it makes sense, like their analysts. So I'm pretty excited about that. And I think the TrendSpider thing is newer. We should have an official announcement about that soon. So I think there's just going to be more people that are seeing value in this. And then I think in terms of the expansion, I think one of the things on our product roadmap, our generative AI implementation, I'm really excited about, because I think there is a lot of when I look at competitors, like some people asking, should I buy Apple or Amazon? And like what some of these generative AIs will show you, they'll show you like EPS, they'll show you PE ratio, a lot of old metrics. So, what we're setting up is, not only something where we're putting, I think a much more powerful, signal search engine that I think is much more meaningful in terms of what we set up. And you can kind of see that on the Republic page, the kind of questions that we're going to be thinking about. But I also think that, some of the ways that we're setting it up to help people to learn, as opposed to just giving them, the answer. I think sometimes generative AIs can be a little bit like, here's what you want, not necessarily what you need. So I'm pretty excited about both those things on the roadmap. And I think that could be, huge. Both of those things could be huge growth engines for us.
Awesome. I appreciate you, George. Wherever you're watching this, the link to go in and check out this whole page for yourself is down below. Or just send me a DM with Prospero, and I'll make sure you get over all this links, plus the other spreadsheet that George sent me over with a lot more information. And like I said, we're going to be doing another one of these. So send me any questions you have. I want you guys to be informed decision makers here if you guys want to invest in this or not. And so we appreciate everyone for listening in, who listened to this live. For everyone, if who's listened to this after, if you're at this point, you probably enjoyed it, unless you just clicked to the very end, which I don't think too many people will do on live streams. Never know. But I appreciate you. I appreciate everyone. George, thank you, and I will catch everyone.